The Abandoned. The Valkyrie were known throughout the galaxy for their bioluminescent skin and their expertise in quantum communications. Their sleek bodies, covered in patterns of light that shifted with their emotions, made them natural diplomats in the Grand Alliance of 43 species. The Alliance prided itself on being a perfect union of logic and progress, governed by the infallible efficiency protocols, mathematical formulas that dictated every decision from resource allocation to rescue operations. On board the research vessel Lumina, Science Officer Ilara Vext stood at the command console, her skin pulsing with anxiety as warning lights flashed across the bridge. The ship had suffered a catastrophic engine failure while collecting data on a pulsar at the edge of the Cygnus arm. Navigation is offline. Life support at 60% and falling, reported Technician Sorin, his light patterns dimming with each word. We're caught in the gravitational pull of Nexus IV. Ilara's mate, Commander Talon Vex, attempted to stabilize their descent as the Lumina plummeted toward the barren, rocky surface of the uninhabited planet below. Their 3 children, barely past their first molting, huddled together in the emergency shelter, their young skin flickering with fear. Brace for impact. Talon shouted as the vessel skidded across the planet's surface, leaving a trail of debris across the gray, dusty landscape. When the violent shaking finally stopped, Ilara pulled herself from beneath a collapsed section of ceiling. Status report. Hull integrity compromised. Main power offline. Emergency systems operational but depleting. Sorin coughed through the acrid smoke filling the bridge. Distress beacon activated on all Alliance frequencies. Commander Talon emerged from the wreckage, his arm hanging limp at his side. The children. Safe, Ilara confirmed after checking the shelter. But Talon, we have enough oxygen for perhaps 15 cycles, and water for 20. Food supplies are limited. The Alliance will come, Talon said with confidence. Our distress beacon is transmitting. They'll calculate our survival chances and send help. The first Alliance vessel appeared on their scanners 3 cycles later. The luminous systems detected the approach of a Zeridian merchant ship following a standard trade route. Ilara's skin brightened with hope as she watched the ship's trajectory change slightly, acknowledging their distress signal. They're responding, she cried, embracing Talon. But the Zeridian vessel merely slowed, scanned their wreckage, transmitted a brief message, and continued on its course. Distress signal acknowledged. Alliance Efficiency Protocol 12.7.9 calculates rescue efficiency rating of 0.32. Rating below threshold of 0.75 for intervention. Regrets extended. Talon stared at the message in disbelief. That's impossible. We're a family of 5 with children. Sorin, who had once worked in Alliance administration before joining the research mission, explained grimly. The protocol weighs the cost of rescue against the contribution potential of the survivors. Our location is remote, requiring significant fuel and resources to reach us. 5 lives versus the expenditure. The mathematics are clear by Alliance standards. 2 more ships passed over the next 6 cycles. Each acknowledged their distress call. Each cited the same protocol. Each left them to die. By the 10th cycle, the Lumina's life support systems were failing. The children's bioluminescence had dimmed to almost nothing as they conserved energy. Ilara and Talon had given most of their rations to their offspring, hoping desperately for rescue that seemed increasingly unlikely. Another ship approaching. Sorin announced weakly from his position at the damaged scanner console. His voice lacked the hope that had accompanied previous detections. Ilara didn't even look up from where she cradled her youngest child. Another Alliance vessel to acknowledge our existence and abandon us to the protocol. No, Sorin said, confusion evident in his voice. This signature doesn't match any Alliance configuration. The propulsion system is primitive. Wait, they're changing course. Talon dragged himself to the scanner. Who are they? Unknown, but they're heading directly toward us. Outside, The sky darkened as a large, bulky vessel moved into position above their crash site. Unlike the sleek, mathematically perfect ships of the Alliance, this craft bore visible welds and patches. Its engines roared with unrefined power as it hovered overhead. "They're hailing us," Soren said, his skin flickering with nervous energy. A voice crackled through their damaged communication system, speaking in halting but understandable galactic standard. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth vessel Horizon. We've received your distress call and are preparing for ground rescue. Hold tight. We're coming to get you." Ilara and Talon looked at each other in shock. Humans, the newest, barely accepted members of the Alliance, a species known for their unpredictability and their strange disregard for optimal efficiency. "Humans don't follow the efficiency protocols," Soren whispered. "They haven't fully integrated Alliance methodology." Outside, a shuttle detached from the larger vessel, descending through Nexus Ivy's thin atmosphere. The bulky craft landed with little grace, but obvious purpose 100 meters from the Lumina's wreckage, kicking up clouds of gray dust. 4 figures emerged wearing environmental suits that appeared cobbled together from mismatched parts. They moved with urgency toward the downed ship, carrying equipment and supplies. The lead figure reached the emergency hatch and activated the external communication panel. "Captain Rai is here. We're reading 5 life signs. Is everyone alive in there?" Talon responded weakly. "Yes, barely. But why are you here?" "The efficiency protocol." "We don't give a damn about your efficiency protocol," came the immediate reply. "We're getting you out. Stand back from the hatch. We're cutting through." As the sound of metal cutting tools filled the air, Ilara pulled her children close, their dim skin showing the first flickers of hope in days. Perhaps there was something to be said for inefficiency after all. The unexpected saviors. The Horizon was not what the Valkyrie expected from an interstellar vessel. Where Alliance ships featured sleek lines and minimal design, the human craft was a patchwork of metal and composites, corridors cluttered with equipment and personal items. It smelled of engine oil, coffee, and a dozen cooking spices from Earth's various cultures. To the Valkyrie, accustomed to the sterile, efficient environments of Alliance vessels, it was chaotic and strangely comforting. Captain Elena Reyes stood in the medical bay, watching Dr. Amara Okafor examine the Valkyrie family. Elena was a stocky woman in her 50s with dark skin, lined by decades of facing the harsh conditions of space. Her black hair, streaked with gray, was pulled back in a practical braid. "How are they?" Elena asked, handing the doctor a steaming mug of coffee. Dr. Okafor accepted it gratefully, malnourished and dehydrated. The adults gave most of their rations to the children. Classic parental sacrifice. "Nothing we can't fix." She lowered her voice. "But I'm concerned about their bioluminescence. It's barely functioning, which for their species indicates severe energy depletion." Elena frowned. "Can we help with that?" "Already working on it. Zach is modifying some of our light panels to emit the specific frequency their bodies absorb. It's not perfect, but it should help until we reach Outpost 7. In the corner of the medical bay, engineer Zach Chen was indeed tinkering with a portable light array. He glanced up when he heard his name. "Almost done, Captain. These folks basically photosynthesize, but with quantum particles instead of sunlight." Fascinating biology. The eldest Valkyrie child had been watching Zach work. Curiosity overcoming fear, the engineer noticed and waved the young alien over. "Want to help? I could use someone with tiny fingers for these connections." Commander Talon Vex approached Captain Reyes, his arm now properly set in a healing cast. "I must understand, Captain. Why did you respond to our distress call when Alliance ships would not?" Elena's expression hardened. "Because leaving people to die when you can help them is wrong. I don't care what some mathematical formula says. But the resources expended are worth it." Elena interrupted. "Look, Commander, humans have been traveling space for less than a century. We're new to your Alliance, and frankly, we find some of your protocols disturbing. Where we come from, Maritime law dictates that if you receive a distress call, you respond. End of story. Talon's skin flickered with confusion. Maritime. You refer to water transportation. Old Earth tradition from our seafaring days. The ocean was vast and dangerous, just like space. Ships helped other ships, period. No calculations, no efficiency ratings, just people helping people. She shrugged. Or in this case, people helping Valkyrie. The ship's intercom crackled. Captain to the bridge. We're receiving a transmission from an Alliance vessel. Elena sighed. And here comes the lecture. Excuse me, Commander. On the bridge, First Officer Marcus Wong occupied the captain's chair. He relinquished it immediately as Elena entered. Alliance cruiser Rational Discourse requesting communication. Captain. They seem displeased. I bet they are, Elena muttered. On screen, the view screen activated to show a stern-faced Thelonian, his jellyfish-like appendages quivering with barely contained irritation. Human vessel Horizon. This is Administrator Vox of the Alliance Regulatory Commission. You have violated Protocol 12.7.9 by interfering in a situation clearly designated as below intervention threshold. Elena leaned forward in her chair. Administrator, we received a distress call from a family with children. We responded. I fail to see the problem. The problem, Captain Reyes, is that you have disrupted the careful balance of resource allocation that maintains our alliance. Protocol 12.7.9 exists to ensure optimal distribution of rescue assets. Those rescue assets you're talking about, they're called people, Administrator, and they were dying. The Thelonian's appendages rippled with displeasure. Your emotional response is noted but irrelevant. The efficiency protocol calculated. I don't care what it calculated, Elena interrupted. 5 people are alive instead of dead. If that's inefficient, then your system is broken. This incident will be reported to the Alliance Council. Your species' provisional membership status may be reconsidered. Report away, Elena said, rising from her chair. And while you're at it, report that we'll respond to every distress call we receive, regardless of your protocols. Horizon out. She signaled Marcus to cut the transmission. The bridge crew sat in silence for a moment before Navigator Layla Karim spoke up. That might have consequences, Captain. Elena nodded. Probably. But I'd make the same choice again. In the medical bay, Science Officer Ilara Vex sat beside her youngest child, watching as the human-modified light panels bathed them in a soft glow. Already, her child's bioluminescence was beginning to strengthen, patterns of light dancing across the small body. Dr. Okafor checked readings on her medical pad. The treatment's working. Their energy levels are increasing steadily. You understand our biology remarkably well for a species so new to interstellar travel, Ilara observed. Amara smiled. We're good at adapting and learning quickly. Had to be, to survive on Earth. Your captain risks much by defying the Alliance protocols, Ilara said quietly. Why would she jeopardize your standing for strangers? Because that's what humans do, Amara replied simply. We see someone in trouble, we help. It's not always logical or efficient, but it's who we are. On the bridge, Elena studied the star charts as the horizon continued toward Outpost 7, the nearest neutral station where the Valkyrie could arrange transport home. Marcus approached with a data pad. 3 more Alliance vessels have contacted us, all citing protocol violations, he reported. And we're receiving distress calls from other ships. Elena looked up sharply. More vessels in trouble. No, Captain. They're hailing specifically to thank us. Word of what we did is spreading. It seems not everyone in the Alliance appreciates the efficiency protocols. He handed her the pad. This one's from a Drulani science vessel. Their captain says, and I quote, "You have reminded us of what we once were before efficiency became our god." As the horizon continued its journey, more messages arrived, some supportive, others condemning. The Alliance was divided on the humans' actions, but no one was indifferent. Something fundamental had been challenged, and the ripples were spreading across the galaxy. In their guest quarters, Talon and Ilara watched their children sleep peacefully, their skin glowing with renewed energy. Perhaps, Talon said softly, efficiency isn't everything. Ilara took his hand, their light patterns synchronizing in the Valkyrie expression of deep agreement. Perhaps these humans have something to teach the Alliance after all. A new understanding. Outpost 7 hung in space like a tarnished jewel, its spinning rings catching the light of a nearby binary star system. Originally built as a refueling station, it had evolved into a thriving hub of commerce and cultural exchange, existing just outside Alliance jurisdiction, a neutral territory where the efficiency protocols held less sway. As the horizon approached the docking bay, Alina noticed an unusual number of ships clustered around the station. "That's a lot of traffic for Outpost 7, she remarked. "Layla, are there any special events scheduled?" Navigator Layla Karim checked her console. "No, Captain. But many of these vessels started changing course toward this station shortly after news of our rescue operation spread." First Officer Marcus Wong looked up from his communications panel. "Captain, we're receiving requests for communication from 17 different ships, and the station administrator is requesting your presence immediately upon docking." Alina raised an eyebrow. "Quite the welcoming committee. Secure docking protocols, standard security procedures. Let's find out what this is about." In the guest quarters, the Valkyrie family prepared to disembark. Their bioluminescence had fully recovered, their patterns bright and complex. Ilara helped her children pack the few belongings they'd salvaged from the Lumina, along with gifts from the Horizon's crew. A hand-knitted blanket from Communications Officer Patel, educational tablets from Dr. Okafor, and a small mechanical puzzle box from Engineer Chen that had fascinated the eldest child. A knock at their door revealed Captain Reyes. "We're docking in 30 minutes. I've arranged quarters for you on the station until transport to your homeworld can be secured." "Thank you, Captain," Talon said. "But I'm concerned about your reception. 3 Alliance administrative vessels have arrived at the station. I recognize the insignia of the Regulatory Commission." Elena shrugged. "Not unexpected. The Alliance bureaucracy works fast when their precious protocols are violated. They may attempt to sanction Earth," Ilara warned, her skin patterns shifting with worry, "or revoke your provisional membership entirely." "Maybe," Elena acknowledged, "but helping your family was worth it." The Horizon docked with a gentle shudder, magnetic clamps securing the ship to the station. As the airlock cycled open, Alina led her senior officers and the Valkyrie family onto the main concourse of Outpost 7. They were met not by stern Alliance administrators, but by a crowd of beings from dozens of species. A thunderous sound filled the air, a cacophony of different anatomies producing what Alina suddenly realized was applause in various forms. Tentacles waved, wings fluttered, appendages stomped, and voices called out in a multitude of languages. A tall, insectoid Tavik approached, mandibles clicking with what the translator rendered as respect. "Captain Rice, I am Administrator Kist of Outpost 7. Your arrival has generated considerable interest." "So I see," Elena replied, scanning the crowd uneasily. "I was expecting a different reception." "The Alliance administrators are waiting in the diplomatic chamber," Kist confirmed. "But they found the crowd intimidating. Word of your rescue operation has spread throughout the sector. Many here have lost loved ones to the efficiency protocols over the years." A path cleared through the crowd as they were led toward the station's central section. Beings reached out to touch the humans, or the Valkyrie family, gently as they passed. Gestures of solidarity in 100 different cultural forms. In the diplomatic chamber, 3 Alliance administrators waited. The Thelonian who had contacted the Horizon, a crystalline plex entity, and a gelatinous Morbidian diplomat. Their demeanor suggested frustration rather than the confidence Helena had expected. "Captain Reyes," the Thelonian began, "your actions have created a most inefficient situation. 17 rescue operations have been conducted in defiance of Protocol 12.7. 9. Since your transmission was intercepted, Alliance regulatory ships have been ignored. Calculation parameters have been questioned. Order is disrupting. Elena crossed her arms. Sounds to me like people are remembering what's truly important. The Plex entity chimed melodically, light refracting through its crystal structure. The mathematical foundations of our alliance are precise. The efficiency protocols ensure optimal resource allocation across 43 species with different needs and capacities. Without these formulas, chaos would ensue. With respect, Talon interjected, stepping forward with his family. I once believed as you do. But when my children were dying and ship after ship acknowledged our distress only to abandon us, I began to question these mathematics. The Morbidian diplomat rippled with disapproval. Emotional responses cloud judgment. This is why we developed the protocols, to remove subjective factors from decision-making. But we are not machines, Ilara countered, her skin flashing with passionate light patterns. The Alliance was formed to celebrate diversity, not reduce us to numerical values. Outside the chamber, the crowd had grown. View screens throughout the station broadcast the confrontation, and ships continued to arrive. On the concourse, beings from across the galaxy shared stories of loved ones lost to the cold calculations of Protocol 12.7. 9. A Drellani whose mate had been deemed inefficient to save after a mining accident. A Zeridian whose entire research team had been abandoned on a failing space station because the rescue quotient fell below threshold. Inside the diplomatic chamber, the debate continued. Your species has been part of the Alliance for less than a decade. The Thelonian addressed Alina. You cannot comprehend the complexities of managing resources across 43 species spanning thousands of light years. Maybe not, Alina conceded. But we know something about balance. Efficiency matters, yes, but not at the expense of our humanity, or your equivalent. Our equivalent. The Plex entity chimed questioningly. The quality that makes you more than your physical components, Dr. Okafor explained. The essence that gives meaning beyond mere survival. Call it soul, consciousness, spark. Every species has it, though many of your protocols seem designed to ignore it. The chamber doors slid open, and Administrator Kizit entered with several station security officers. Forgive the interruption, but there is a situation developing that requires attention. The crowd has grown beyond station capacity. Ships continue to arrive. They are demanding changes. The Morbidian diplomat rippled anxiously. What kind of changes? They are calling for the immediate suspension of Protocol 12.7.9 and a review of all efficiency protocols by a diverse council, including members from every Alliance species, full and provisional. The Alliance administrators exchanged troubled glances. The Thelonian's appendages drooped slightly. Such a review would be highly disruptive to established procedures. Perhaps disruption is exactly what the Alliance needs. Came a new voice. All eyes turned to see an elderly Drellani enter the chamber, leaning heavily on a cane. Despite his frail appearance, his presence commanded immediate respect. High Counselor Vren. The Plex entity chimed in surprise. We were not informed of your presence on the station. I came anonymously when I heard of these events, the Drellani explained. For too long, I have watched our Alliance become more concerned with mathematical perfection than with the values upon which we were founded. These humans, he nodded toward Alina and her crew, have reminded us of something we've forgotten. High Counselor Vren moved to stand beside the Valkyrie family. This family lives because someone chose compassion over calculation. Is that not what civilization means? Not just survival, but the values that make survival worthwhile. The diplomatic chamber fell silent. Outside, the crowd waited. Across the sector, ships paused in their journeys as news of the confrontation spread. Finally, the Thelonian spoke. The council will need to convene. Review procedures must be established. Transition protocols developed. Of course, Vren agreed. But first, a gesture of good faith. Suspend Protocol 12.7.9 immediately. pending review. After a moment of silent communication among themselves, the administrators nodded in reluctant agreement. News of the suspension rippled through the crowd outside, triggering a thunderous response that reverberated through the station's structure. In the days that followed, ships continued to arrive at Outpost 7, not just to celebrate, but to share stories, to bear witness, to begin the difficult work of re-examining what the Alliance had become. 2 weeks later, as the Valkyrie family prepared to board a transport to their homeworld, they came to bid farewell to the Horizon's crew. The children rushed to hug Zach Chen, who had spent hours teaching them Earth games and mechanical principles. Dr. Okafor received a traditional Valkyrie blessing, her skin temporarily painted with bioluminescent patterns that would fade after a few days. Ilara and Talon approached Captain Reyes last. "We can never repay what you've done," Talon said. "Not just for our family, but for the Alliance itself." Elena shook her head. "There's nothing to repay. We did what anyone should do." "That's precisely the point," Ilara replied, her skin glowing with a complex pattern that the translator rendered as profound gratitude with overtones of philosophical awakening. "Your species asks questions the rest of us stopped asking long ago. Why help? Why care? Why value life beyond its statistical worth?" She took Elena's hands in hers. "The Alliance needs these questions. We need your inefficient, impractical compassion." As the Horizon prepared to depart Outpost 7, requests flooded in from across the sector. Invitations for Earth representatives to join discussions on protocol revisions, cultural exchange programs, joint scientific ventures. The disruption caused by one rescue operation had expanded into something far greater. On the bridge, Elena watched the stars stretch into luminous streaks as the Horizon jumped to FTL. "New course, Captain?" Navigator Lila asked. Elena considered the question. The Alliance was changing, opening, questioning itself for the first time in generations. Earth's role had transformed from tolerated newcomer to catalyst for revaluation. "There's a distress call from the Cygnus Arm," she decided. "A small research vessel, outside Alliance space, so no protocols apply. But they could use a hand." "Setting course, Captain," Lila confirmed. "Efficiency rating." Helena smiled. "Irrelevant. They need help. That's reason enough." As the Horizon sped toward its next mission, news of its journey continued to spread. Across the galaxy, ships began changing course to answer calls they would once have ignored. Calculations remained important. Resources were still finite, distances still vast. But the cold equations now included variables they had long omitted: compassion, dignity, and the intrinsic value of every sentient life. It wasn't always efficient, but it was becoming more just, one rescue at a time.